Hi, I'm Kirsten Watson. I'm here today with Kerry Zuber. He's Kinaxis's Director of Business Consulting. Kerry's recently published a white paper called Inventory Rationalization and Right-Sizing Strategies, and he's here today with us to talk a little bit more about that. So the business climate has changed dramatically over the last 20 years. Today we're currently in the midst of some really tough economic times. How has this changed companies' inventory strategies?
Well, most notably, we're in a global environment now, and it's never been easier for customers to, or I should say a company to lose customers. That's driven by a lot of factors, but of course the global economy is probably the most. You've got more competitors, you're competing on several different fronts, product life cycles are shorter, so new products are coming on board more frequently, and therefore there is a need to manage inventory. And of course margins are compressed rather dramatically. That global competition is driving prices downward, and because margins are so tight, people have to manage their money and cash more effectively today than they ever did before. And for most manufacturers, inventory happens to be the number one asset that influences their cash position. And in fact, in today's economy, especially with the recession going on, many companies got caught with the sudden downturn in business with inventory, and affecting them in a fashion that it actually, in many cases, is creating severe hardships to the fact that some may not survive as a result of that. And so those pressures cause companies to really look very carefully at what inventory they are going to maintain, how they're leveraging that inventory to meet their strategic objectives, and that may be customer performance or protecting important products and or managing issues with supply chain reliability issues. And so, for example, part of today's economy is the fact that because companies are potentially going out of business, they may have serious supply disruption risks. So part of those inventory rationalization strategies need to also recognize these risk management strategies that may need to be in place to address the probability that a key supplier or a key component may not be available for some period of time.
Of course. So when talking about inventory right-sizing strategies, then, what are the key considerations that should come into play for companies?
They really fall along two primary lines. One is the product strategies themselves, and many companies don't do this or do this very effectively, and that is understanding the role those products play in the health and welfare of your company. So if a product is strategic in nature in terms of its revenue or the potential growth of the markets or market share that you wish to capture, then ensuring that you have inventories properly positioned to capture that market is extremely important. And that deals with understanding what the market expectation is for availability. So if you are competing for market share and other competitors are having product that's immediately on the shelf and available, then you better be in that same position. Because very often the second you lose that opportunity for that sale, you may also be losing the opportunity for future sales. People won't come to look for you for that product. Consequently, if there is an opportunity or the market position for availability is one that provides you with some lead time opportunity, then you may not need to have finished goods, and understanding that therefore you can maintain inventory at lower levels of the product hierarchy and still meet the market's expectation. Similarly, if the product is maybe not strategic, you may decide that you need less inventory or less finished goods position because capturing that additional market opportunity would not necessarily have a significant benefit to you. And so it is a risk and benefit trade-off analysis that has to go on there. But product is the key dimension. The secondary dimension for right-sizing strategies really deal with the risk of supply disruption. And it's quite different. So now your decisions may down be at the purchase component level. Lean would dictate in many cases that you may want to have as little inventory as possible, and you may end up having strategic relationships with suppliers. But you can't have that relationship with every supplier. And you may have quality or delivery variability concerns that might require that you consider what is the right amount of inventory to maintain to ensure that you can, in fact, build product when you need to and that it does flow.
Mm-hmm. So you brought up how inventory is a way of mitigating risk, and then as well how people have put into place lean practices. So do you think perhaps lean practices have further aggravated the impact of today's economic challenges, maybe?
Certainly, if lean is taken to a purist perspective, it can actually introduce supply chain risks, unnecessary supply chain risks that can actually compromise your company's objectives for goal or for revenue, or at least meet market flexibility requirements. So you can't lose sight of those key precepts around product importance, product flexibility requirements in making those decisions when you're implementing lean about where you're going to lean inventory out of that supply chain. The other key to mention there with respect to lean is that, of course, in today's marketplace, and that's one of the other major shifts that has occurred, is that companies have now got a more extended supply chain than any time ever before, and that's as a result of largely of major outsourcing moves. So as you attempt to implement lean downstream, very often, despite your attempt to implement it, you don't have visibility to that, and in fact may have greater supply chain risk. So companies really need to look at that very carefully in the implementation of lean and understand where strategic inventory really is needed to ensure that flow will actually occur, and that your product flexibility needs to meet your market positioning strategy is achieved.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Thanks, Gary.
You're more than welcome.
All right, Kim, I've got a tough one for my trusty Sage trainer.
Go ahead, test me.
Okay, so what if, say, I run a company that builds and fixes computers?
That's easy enough.
But say my team is constantly using and reordering parts, thousands of parts, and I have to keep track of both the physical things and the services I sell.
There are features within Sage Peachtree for that too.
Glad to hear it.
The Inventory and Services Management Center helps organize your physical inventory, parts for instance, and services like the labor to fix computers. Let's talk about actual physical items first. Sage Peachtree has powerful reports that let you know exactly how much inventory you have at any given time. You can be notified when the quantity is below a minimum stock level, which can then trigger an automatic purchase order. The Inventory Profitability Report helps you evaluate how well your items are selling by showing you which items are providing you with the greatest and least profit margins. Use the Item Costing Report to monitor the cost of your inventory in detail. It provides per transaction cost information for each item you purchase and sell. With this report, you'll keep on top of costs so that they stay down.
That's handy.
I know. And you can create assemblies to track the parts you need when somebody orders a computer. Parts that make up that computer like monitors, keyboards, and RAM, and assign serial numbers to record sold items. Oh, and set different price levels.
Different price levels?
Sure. For example, you could offer a special price that's 10% lower for your best customers. Or create quantity discounts when someone buys in bulk.
But what about the basics, like counting your inventory?
The physical inventory list will help keep your stock details handy so you can manage your inventory. And you can drop ship inventory too. Seamlessly purchase inventory like a monitor from your vendor and have it shipped directly to your customer.
So I can track every little aspect of physical inventory. Nice. Can I do this for services?
Sure. In fact, when creating an invoice, simply select the service inventory item, like diagnostics time or on-site repair service, and report on it just like physical inventory. You can create assemblies that combine all the parts and labor needed for a certain project. This makes reporting easy because you can see the true cost of an item with everything included.
Seems like Sage Peachtree offers a ton of information.
It does. And if you use the Inventory Services Management Center, you can see everything at once. Who bought the item, which vendors you purchased from, backorder information, and inventory count adjustments.
Can I customize my Inventory Services Management Center the way I modify my Customer Management Center?
Definitely. You can customize it to make yourself feel at home.
Once I get this up and running, I may actually get home for dinner for a change.
Imagine! Here are the links that'll help you get started.
One of my favorite questions is one I often get from students and people that haven't had a lot of exposure to my professional field, and that is, how does operations management apply to service businesses? This is very interesting to me because given my focus on the healthcare industry, I actually spend a great percentage of my time working in service operations. Actually, whether you are making automotive components, selling books over the internet, processing transactions in a bank, or treating patients in a clinic, there are generally more people working under the umbrella of operations than in any other function of the business. First, a definition. Academically, and painted with a very broad brush, operations supplies or produces and delivers the product or service of the organization. So here's the framework for operations management in service businesses. Process design is comprised of four main elements: service design, as in specifications, service guarantees, experience engineering, and technology application; process flow, that is, how work will be carried out and how customers will move through the process; quality planning; and customer contact. Quality control has three primary elements: This area is a bit difficult to conceptualize, so let me illustrate. For example, in healthcare, process controls aim to eliminate variability and ensure effective delivery. So this applies to effectiveness of procedures for things like verbal order readback, control of sharps and hygiene. Process controls prevent side effects such as infections. They apply to medication to prevent the wrong drugs being delivered to the wrong patient. And they impact patient care in ways such as ensuring integrity of patient data and avoiding lab errors. Service quality is about, for example, managing expectations for waiting time and monitoring indicators of patient satisfaction. Conformance quality metrics monitor performance. Examples then are patient outcomes, errors, readmissions, and adverse events. Capacity and scheduling in service businesses is very similar to the application in product companies. It is about anticipating customer demand and optimizing the use of resources to deliver at the expected time. This also includes maximizing revenue by, for example, managing bookings, pricing, and resource allocation. Next is inventory and procurement. Now, service businesses may or may not have actual material inventory, such as medical devices and supplies on the shelf in hospitals, so this may or may not apply. But certainly procurement practices apply to all service businesses because they all spend money with outside suppliers, such as those for facilities maintenance and legal, accounting, and payroll services. The last area of my framework is continuous improvement. This applies here, as it does everywhere, from industry benchmarking to uncover potential opportunities to the internal methodologies adopted, such as Lean or Six Sigma, to drive improvement in cost and customer service. This would also include program and project management effectiveness. In conclusion, and most importantly, it is the performance of your company's operations that ultimately determines customer satisfaction. That is, the perception of value and quality in the goods and services received. Therefore, excellence in operations management is critical to any type of business.